Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of our new series, Our Girls Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined by Mike Benelli, Christy Casciano Burns, and Sherry Hudspeth. Our goal with this show is to tackle the topics and discussions surrounding the girls' game to better the game for everyone. So if you're involved in hockey in any way, we're going to provide value and insight to create both a better environment and experience for everyone involved. For this episode, our topic is a guide to college hockey recruiting. That's going to be a popular one. And our expert panelist is someone who knows those pathways very well. She is the assistant coach for the Boston University women's ice hockey team and is a former collegiate and professional player. Please join us in welcoming Megan Myers to the show today. Megan, thank you for joining us on Our Girls Play Hockey.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here. This is awesome. I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. And I was reading, Megan, that you hail from the great city of Las Vegas. Our very own Sherry Hudspeth is in Vegas right now. It's a small world, eh, Sherry?
Good morning, Megan. Thank you for being here. Nevada's becoming quickly a hotbed of hockey. We are pretty new to hockey, though, so our audience here, we want to inform them today. This is going to be a very informative episode, and we're really looking forward to diving into it. If our kids are interested in playing college hockey, where do we start? Like, what age do we start thinking about playing college hockey?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's changed a lot since, I was even going through it. The rules in the NCAA have changed. Like, even when I was in school, it was like you couldn't declare or commit until your senior year. So it started a little bit later. Obviously, researching starts around junior year. But now to play Division I hockey, you're getting recruited right after your sophomore year of high school. So it's a little bit earlier. There was a rule a couple of years ago, too, that you can be recruited at any age, which I found a little bit wild. So like, you can recruit an eighth grader if you want. So I do think a good time now is freshman year of high school. I think high school is a great place to start. I think girls put too much pressure on themselves in middle school age to get those scholarships and play college hockey. But at the end of the day, like, those are growth and transformative years of your career that skill is more important. Focus on that freshman year, maybe start doing research, but don't get too hyped up about it. Just play hockey wherever you are. And me, I'm coming from Las Vegas, so I can say this, they'll find you. So I think like freshman year is an easy start. I think girls now start way too early. We freak out a little bit easier than the boys do, but that's what I would say. Freshman year of high school.
So Megan, my daughter's in second grade. Can we schedule a phone call sometime soon? She's a really standout defenseman. And now go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get her an NIL or an NLI and an NIL if she wants. We'll set her up.
All right.
I'm going to add one more on there, Megan. Like, who do you recommend that they contact when they do start getting of age to contact coaches? Like, is it assistant coach? Is it head coach? Is it admissions? Where do they start?
I think it's a good place to start because you're obviously doing research. So you're on the school websites. You're on the athletic websites. Every school has a questionnaire on their women's ice hockey website. So it basically just asks like your home address, where do you play, what teams, how old you are, what's your grad year. It's a good place to start because that comes directly to us. And then when we start looking and contacting you after you email all the coaches, I think it's important to email everyone. We get a lot of emails, and I'm answering emails one day and our head coach is answering them another day. So I think it's good to get eyes on all of us. But once we come watch you play, we have all your information already from the questionnaire. So I feel like that's a really good first step to start. You can fill out questionnaires, as many as you want. So you can reach out to a broad range of coaches. And then obviously as coaches start reaching out when they can, you start narrowing down your search.
All right, we'll talk more about how to get on a coach's radar, but let's talk about something really important. And parents and kids need to listen to this. Academics always needs to be the priority. And we always told our kids, especially with our daughter who ended up playing college hockey, if something were to happen, if you got injured, let's say you got cut from the team, are you still going to be happy on that college campus academically and socially? I think sometimes that gets clouded with kids, especially when you got the lure of playing college hockey.
100%. I mean, it's crazy now with the June 15th rule. So with June 15th rule, we can start contacting after the sophomore year going into their junior year. And we can't have them visit until August 1st. So it's this weird space in July where like we're kind of courting them. It's very weird. We're like dating them and like trying to keep them interested. And it's very weird. But I always preach to the girls, like I've seen girls commit before August. And I'm like, how have we never seen campuses? It was so important in my process to get on campus, love the city I'm in, love it even if it snows there, love the coach, but understand the coach isn't the biggest part of your process. love it academically, because like you're right, a lot of broad things can happen in your career. And you're not going to like the coach every day. You're not going to like school every day. Hockey could suck some days, but you have to find a way that is an all-encompassing experience that you get a gut feeling when you visit school. And it's like, I could be here for 4 years regardless of hockey's in my life, which I find super, super important.
I'm really glad you're talking about this, because I have seen kids, because my daughter went through college. So obviously, I saw a lot of kids who committed, and then in the middle of the season, they're finding out it doesn't feel right to me. I don't like where I am. I don't like the fact that I can't go out on the weekends. There's so much to take into account. And kids really need to carefully think about all the aspects of college life, not just hockey.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think one of the biggest things that I'm seeing a lot, and the reason why girls are committing so soon and not taking the time to do visits, and believe me, like we've committed girls who haven't visited. So I'm not saying that I'm any different, but I think it's the social pressure that these girls are getting. Social media, you see your best friend on your club team that's committed to Ohio State. You're like, what am I doing? Or even Division III, like they just have this social pressure of committing early and not being left behind. And I feel like it's kind of like fast tracking their process where they're not taking the time to actually enjoy it. Like they earned it. They played hockey their whole career. They're good at it. That's why they're being recruited. They have good grades. They crushed it in the classroom. And now they should enjoy this whole process where they get to come on campuses and get treated like a professional. So yeah, the pressure of it all, I can't imagine back in our day, like having social media like this. It would be awful.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot of pressure. Let's talk about now how to get on a coach's radar. Email's very important. How does a high school student, prep school student, draft the perfect email that will get a coach to communicate back with you, that you'll get an email response?
So the perfect way, let's start from the beginning. So subject line, straight and to the point. First and last name, grad year, and where you play. Birth year is okay too, but grad year is more what we go off of in terms of talking to kids on June 15th. Next part, the dear or hello to so-and-so coach. Make sure we get the right coach. It's hard sometimes. We get a lot of emails from to coaches that aren't ourselves, which I understand. Kids are nervous writing email. It's no big deal, but just make it important. And then the subject email, short and sweet. We get emails from girls all the time. And I was one of those kids. I made a hockey resume. Like it was this full long like attachment. The email was very long. And if I'm a coach now, I probably wouldn't read those emails. It takes a lot of time to go through them. I think short and sweet, the better. Hey, this is who I am. This is the position I play my grad year. And this is my team schedule for the year. Or if you just have an upcoming tournament and you just want to update the coach, and then list all your coach's contact information. It's crazy how much we communicate with the coaches on your behalf, because you're one of your biggest advocates besides yourself. So if you can include your club coach or your prep school coach, or even like a mentor or resource, that's always helpful. And then leaving your phone number and email. So yeah, very short and sweet. That's how I personally see it. I think it's important, just a quick hit. And I was always discouraged by not getting replies, but if I don't reply, don't get discouraged. I get 1 million emails a day. Before every tournament, send one out. Quick hit, one out every time. That would be my approach.
And how often do you follow up with a coach if you don't get an email response?
Hourly.
I try when I was hourly during a tournament. No, I think it's important to send an email out before every tournament. If we don't reply to you, not necessarily doesn't say that we're not interested, but also doesn't say that we are that very interested either. So it's like that tough balance, but we're more than likely talking to your club coach already. So maybe using your club coach as a resource, be like, hey, I've reached out to BU or wherever 1 million times. I haven't heard back. Have you heard from them? Or is there any way that you can help me out and reach out to them? I feel like it's important to use your resources.
Megan, I do like to always equate hockey to the real world, right? I think that's something that we need to do more of, like with our kids. This is really no different than looking for a job in a lot of ways, right? So that 17, 18-year-old kid, or if they're in prep school, they might be a little bit older. Parents, they're going to have to do this out of college, right? And you never put all your eggs in one basket and email a job and say, hey, I'm ready to work here. You email, the rule I had out of college was like, look, you're going to send 10 resumes out a day, and you're going to get 99% no's. You might get a few interviews. So I think if you're wanting to play college hockey, and Megan, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not saying you should email every college coach in the country, but diversify, send them out. It's not so much about putting all your eggs in one basket and just getting a yes. It's about, like you said, hey, okay, I got a tournament. Who's the 5 or 6 people I got to email? All right, moving on. It can't consume your life, but it also can't be something you don't do, right? But this is a skill set for life later on, right? You don't just put all your eggs in one basket.
100%. Even when I was going through the process, I remember I reached out to every Division I program out there.
Yeah.
And I maybe got one response. Didn't even hit the Division III market, which is where I ended up playing. But I think it's so important, like you're saying, to kind of like, I think the research is so important. Find the schools, do your research, even if you can go on campus early and check it out for yourself and your parents. But when you're writing those emails, like it could go a long way. Like, hey, I love Boston University because your business school is one of the best in the country. That's why I love it. Personalizing those emails, it kind of makes you kind of reflect on what you want in your process and what you're looking for too. So writing it out in an email to 10 schools is going to help you kind of narrow down, okay, I've reached out to 10 schools that all have business programs. I guess I'm telling myself something. You know what I mean? I think it helps with that too. But I agree. I think you want to throw it a wide enough net, but you also want to understand yourself in this process and what you're looking for, because not every school is different.
It's a great point.
Well, every school is different.
Every rink now, we're seeing parents with elite video setups. At what point do you request video from kids, or do you want kids attaching video to that email? What kind of content are you looking for from parents and players? Is it compete? Is it goal highlights? What are you guys looking for?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that's a great add to the email if you have it. I have seen these elite like camera setups, like production crews at rinks sometimes. It's 100% changed since COVID. We used it a lot during COVID in terms of recruiting players. We even still use it now. So I do think like if you are to put video in an email, it doesn't hurt. If you don't have it, it's okay, but it doesn't hurt to have it. In terms of like what we want in those videos, I think shifts are important. We don't want highlight reel goals. I know we can all toe drag and score goals. It's awesome. But I also want to see you back check. And I want to see you pick up a puck off the wall. I want to see how you skate. So I think even if you have a shift where you're not really doing anything, you're kind of just in the D zone, reading the play, IQ, like we want to see that too, to see what we're going to get. Because you think about it, in a hockey game, we're probably touching the puck personally for like a minute or 2 minutes, not even. So I think it's important to add shifts in there. Goalies are a little bit difficult. You probably need a whole game to watch a goalie. I love how they put the camera behind the net from their point of view. It's harder just to watch shifts for a goalie. You kind of like to watch them and how they prepare for, even if the puck is in the opposite zone, how they're getting it ready already when it's coming back the other way. So that'd be my advice. That's a really good point. So I forgot to mention that.
Well, I'll say real quick, my son's a goalie. So now we're talking about recruiting both my children. Of course, I'm just joking. It's funny Sherry brings out the cameras. Recently I saw that Apple has found a way to connect multiple iPhones to record one video. And as a coach, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get different views of the same play from the same kids' parents. No, we set up iPhones all around the boards. You can see it from every angle. Like I don't need that. Right.
That's so funny.
Right. Yeah. Look, Megan, you bring up a good point too. And when we talk about this on the show a lot, and you said, I'm going to reiterate it, everyone can show highlights, right? It's what you do away from the puck is so important, right? And I think too, and I'm going to turn this into a little bit of a question. We're talking about some of the things that maybe can differentiate you, right? My question is going to be, when it comes down to decision time for you, right? There's, like some players are probably easier than others, but there is a point where, okay, I got to make a decision between A, B, and C. I want to talk about what are some of the standout differences that you're looking for. Is it just talent? Is it personality? Is it the parents, right? And again, we're not talking about anybody specifically here, but, and then kind of a follow-up question with that, right? The type of player you are, right? I mean, everybody loves to be the goal scorer, but I said, man, there's a lot of value in saying to a coach, I'm a playmaker and I enjoy being a playmaker. And I know you need a playmaker. So what are the things that at the decision moment you look for to maybe pick between A, B, or C?
All right. So let's say we have a player, I've watched them play, they've come to visit already. So I think when I'm watching them play, the biggest thing, and I'm different, we're all college coaches are different in terms of what we need and what we're looking for. It's impact. If you're making an impact on the game, whether it's you're good defensively, like D, I don't think there's a difference between offensive D and defensive defenseman anymore. As long as you're making an impact in every zone, shutting down the neutral zone, you have an impact. If you're a forward that brings the puck low and cuts back, does a Gretzky turn and makes a great play, that's an impact play. And also someone that can keep the play in front of them. If we're not skating the puck up all the way up the ice and losing it and turning over, now it's going back the other way. Someone that can control the play that way and have an impact by controlling the pace of play, controlling how our teammates can change. Because if you go down and turn it over, no one can change. Now everyone's kind of on the ice all the time. But so impact and keeping the play in front of you is huge for us, like for me on the ice, and obviously hard work. I don't think that's hard when you get a player at the college level to kind of turn around. I think that's ingrained in them at a youth age that is hard for us to change around. So it's nice to see when players have that. And then the other two things I would say is we love their personality on the visit. They were engaged. They were professional. They asked all the right questions. They knew their research when they came to BU. They knew what they wanted to study. They knew the city a little bit. Obviously, we would answer questions for them on the visit, but we love players that are engaged and ready to go. And then obviously, when it comes down to that, you have a really good hockey player and they're great on the visit. Do they love BU? And do they love it here? For the right reasons, what we talked about earlier, it's everything, whether it's the city we're in, the academics, the coaching staff, and the hockey program. I think it's important. You want players on your team that love where you're at. And I think it makes a difference in your, not just on the ice, but in your locker room, the way it's going to gel, the pride in the community on your campuses. I think it's huge. So that was a very long rant, but I hope that answered
that was really informative.
Also, you know, it helped us to narrow down, you know, because Sophia had a couple of options. We actually went to a couple of games and watched the team play. That sold Sophia on where she ended up playing. She loved it. She loved how the coach interacted with the kids. She felt the vibe, you know, with the team. We're in the stands, and it just felt really good. And then afterwards, we walked around campus, and it just felt, to her, in her words, it feels like home, Mom. So that's what really helped us narrow, is actually watching the team play helped to narrow down our decision.
The gut feeling, that's all. It's funny, like you can get that as a recruit, get that gut feeling on the drive home from campus, or it could be like 2 weeks later after you see another campus, you're like, yeah, I still love the other school. But it's funny you talk about going to live games. Like when I was growing up in Vegas, I never saw a live college game. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. The only women's hockey game I watched was like when the 1998 Olympic team, they came back after they won the gold medal, and they played the fire department team at like the Santa Fe Hotel in this casino.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny now, like how these girls have so much access. You come to Boston, you have 5 schools to go to. You go to New York, you go to like Minnesota. Like I think that's such a cool way to do it. Obviously, we're selfish too. We love more fans. So the more we can get out these youth programs, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think knowing that, Megan, you're like coming from an area where there weren't a lot of opportunities to get seen, to now being basically, I think, like in the mecca of, you know, opportunity to be seen. You know, can you talk a little bit about like your favorite tournaments, when you like to go to tournaments, you know, showcases, you know, where are players that you're finding? Like, how are you picking and choosing which ones you want to go to and which ones that you don't feel maybe would be as irrelevant?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a little crazy. We're a little bit everywhere. We have 4 members of our coaching staff now, so we're a little bit everywhere. And even Labor Day is nuts. There's 3 or 4 tournaments at one time, so you kind of have to pick and choose. That's not an easy question to answer, because I feel like we could get out more. Like we could get out to West Coast more and be a little bit more expansive that way. Obviously, East Coast is easier for us. There are great tournaments around Labor Day here in the Boston area, Pittsburgh area, East Coast, that we always go to. They're staples for us in our program. We go to a lot of holiday tournaments. Here in Boston, they do a great one right after Christmas. I remember back when I was playing, it used to be Connecticut Polar Bears used to run this huge tournament. And then we try to branch out to Canada and Europe. We're really trying to be more expansive that way, but we're not perfect. I wish that we could say that we go to the same tournaments every year, but I think it bases too on the emails that we're getting from recruits and where they're going. If we see the big players that we're recruiting or the big teams that we're going to go to those tournaments and we're going to be there. So I think that's another reason why the emails are important, because email alone will get me to go to Long Island on a Sunday. You know what I mean? For a tournament. But yeah, that's not an easy question to ask. We're a little bit of everywhere. Crazy.
I just have two more questions to add on that. We just did an episode on boys hockey. Are you guys watching any boys hockey tournaments or boys hockey games? And also for the coaches listening, can you name some of these girls tournaments that you guys are going to where there's a lot of coaches, like make some recommendations of which ones they can sign up for exposure?
100%. I'm watching boys a little bit more so if I get an email from a girl that's playing on boys team. I watched a girl play last year, and I think she was in Colorado playing for boys hockey. So that's those one-offs that I'll be watching boys. In terms of tournaments that I think are great, Naha here in Boston, they do a great one in Labor Day. Very popular for all levels. They do it, I think, up to the 14U or 16U level. Kathy Pippi does a Labor Day tournament here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Also a very big tournament. I think it's from 14U to 19U. And there's a whole bunch of rinks in Pittsburgh that they do. Wizards, East Coast Wizards in Boston, they do one right after Christmas. It's a pretty big tournament, I think, from the 12U level up. And then I'm trying to think of the other one. There's a bunch in Michigan.
Beantown. Do you like Beantown?
Or Canada?
Beantown's a great one.
That we used to go to that one every year. Yeah.
What about Stoney
Beantown's
Creek,
a great
Canada,
one.
for Canadians? Where you find the Canadian
Oh,
kids?
yeah. Stoney Creek every year. We go to the 18U, the U15, the U18, and the U22 3 weeks in a row. US Canada Cups, they have one in Kitchener, Waterloo, and then they have the Brampton, Oakville, that's the Nest. We do that one a lot. We did go to all their provincial camps this year. We did our best. So if their girls are ever in a provincial camp where they're trying out for either Team Alberta, Team Ontario, Team Nova Scotia, we make our best to try to go to those ones as well. But all over the place, guys.
Do you guys go to the USA Hockey camps too in the summer?
So I worked 15s camp this year. Tara and I went to 16s, 17s, and then we went to 18s camp as well. Most coaches do go to all those in some sort of capacity, whether they're working them or going to watch.
You know what's amazing from what I'm hearing here is that, and this is one for the parents listening, BU recruits. You go on trips. You look for kids,
recruits.
Right? Like, well,
I want that hoodie. That's a hoodie right there. BU recruits.
BU recruits. Here's the deal. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I actually do think, and this is actually going to merge perfectly into Mike's question, that there can be a misconception of like, oh, everybody wants to go there. I have no chance, right? And again, look, if you have the talent and some of the other prerequisites that Megan's talking about, I think you always have a chance, right? But the assumption that like, because it's BU, oh, well, they probably don't have to recruit as hard. That's just not true. All right. These BU recruits, they're working hard. Now, Megan, the way this is going to merge into my next question is this, right? I think most kids would want to go there. All right. I mean, this is a well-known hockey place, in a lot of ways, like as Mike said, a mecca. But let's just say a player wants to go there and they're not getting recruited. What should a player do if they're not getting recruited by the team that they want?
It's a really good question. You're more saying like if we're not communicating with them, but they want to come to BU?
Yeah, I think there's two parts. We'll make up a character here, right? This person wants to play for BU. They've had their heart set on it their whole life, and for whatever reason, they're not getting a lot of traction, right? I think there's two parts to this question, and I'm asking you as a coach, but also a hockey mentor. As a coach, maybe there's a way for them to stick out, but in this scenario, more than likely than not, you're not looking, right? So what should they start to do? They're discouraged. Do they look at other schools? How should they approach that situation?
Yeah, I think they need to use their resources, using their coach to if they can't get a hold of me, if I'm not answering emails or any phone calls, texts, whatever it may be, which would never be the case. We're always on our phone, but if use your coach, have your coach reach out to me or to another coach, whether it's BU or not, like reach out. They're one of your biggest advocates. They're going to fight for you. Like they want to help you as much as you can get to college. Not only does it make them look good that they produced a Division I or Division III hockey player, but they also want to help you. They generally are there for you. They wouldn't be working youth hockey if they didn't love it and wanted to help. So I think doing that. And then if you love a school and maybe you love hockey, you can walk on. People walk on to programs every year. Not to say that those tryouts ever like really work out. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but almost every school has club programs as well. So if you truly love a school for what it is, and varsity athletics is not for you, then make sure they have a club program, that you have a backup plan to try. But yeah, that's a tough one. I feel like it happens a lot, but I think like I wanted to go to BU and I was getting recruited and it didn't happen. So I kept my options open. I kept looking and I found the right place for me.
Yeah.
So I think like we always, I think we always have that one goal in mind. And I wanted to go to Harvard originally to be a doctor, but I couldn't pass chem. So I don't know how I thought that was going to happen. So like when one dream kind of like shifts and changes as you get older, you kind of have to shift and find a new one. And it always works out, regardless if it's
I always say that you got to adjust the sails. But I'm glad you mentioned the club teams, because I know some of Sophia's high school teammates who played club hockey and had a fabulous experience. Don't discount these club teams. They're competitive, they're fun, and sometimes it's the right balance too for you.
And before, Mike, I'm going to throw it to you in a second too. Like it looks like you had a question there, but I think it's also important too to take a moment. And by the way, Megan, that was a great answer. Take a moment, sit back, and actually like look at your priorities here, because I think what happens is a lot of time in the recruiting process, you get lost of I'm a hockey player, right? I'm a hockey player. And you're so much more than a hockey player, right? Part of developing hockey players is you're developing people. That doesn't stop at the college level either, right? This is part of the broad scheme. I think better people make better players anyway. So, I think, and I guess I'm putting this out to the panel. We're all hockeyologists here, by the way, Megan. You might not become a medical doctor, but we're hockeyologists on this show. Is that, if you're discouraged or you're not getting recruited by a place, that's not necessarily what defines you, right? If you don't go to the school you wanted to go to. And Christy brought up academics. It's a huge part of it. If you love the game, you'll play the game. Like again, no one's built for one place or one team. I mean, we all know that. Right. So I think a lot of times it's sitting back. I love that you mentioned leaning in on your coaches, right? Sometimes I think players don't do that enough, right? Is that they are an advocate, right? And they probably have the connections that you need. But if you have tunnel vision, there's only so much someone can help you if you can't see outside your own, the horse stuff on your eyes. Mike, sorry, did you have a question? I saw you kind of leading up. Just wanted to throw that in.
Well, but just because I think the landscape's changing a little bit, right? Too in women's hockey, and we talk about what schools you want to choose. And I know for the men's game, it was always, for the top players, it was like, well, I'm going to go to BU because I want to go play pro hockey. Right. And that the piece of choosing a school, to Christy's point, I think in the women's game, I just want to get your opinion on how do you feel that's changing a little bit now that there is actually an opportunity to play professional women's hockey and earn a living from the school you choose to go to, rather than 10 years ago, just saying, well, the academic piece I have to have, even if so I'm going to choose a school. Maybe I'm a lot better, ability to play at, but I'm choosing it because this is where I want to go, because it's the courses that I need to take in order to move on with my life. And, have you seen a little bit of that? Because obviously BU is one of those places, right? The women that play there are, there's a large percentage of them that are getting drafted and going to get to play pro hockey.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the landscape now. Can we agree that that's a really cool thing? Like,
it's
that's
the greatest thing
super
ever.
Cool. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely part of the landscape now. I think I think that could be overshadowed by the recruiting process a little bit, kind of how the men, like, they had the tunnel vision for professional hockey, where like you have 4 years in between that you need to spend and enjoy. And I might be biased because I played professional hockey out of Division III, but I think you can go anywhere. And if you're good enough, you're going to get drafted. If you're good enough and have a great career and go to a professional tryout, hopefully when all these girls graduate, we'll have 8 to 12 teams. You're going to play professional hockey. And if you play Division III or you play Division I and say like PWHL is not what you want to do, there's plenty of pro leagues in Europe. So it doesn't say like PWHL is the end all be all. We have players that just left BU are going to go play in Europe for a year. Like, professional hockey is professional hockey. Anyway, I don't think we can be judgy in terms of like, I'm going to pick BU because I'm going to PWHL. No, like, you should go to Trinity College because they're great academically, and then you can go play pro in Sweden, or even still play pro in the PWHL. I think that tunnel vision mindset is going to start to creep in on the girls a little bit. I agree with you in terms of picking schools to play pro. But I hope the mindset is, if having confidence in yourself, I'm good and I can go anywhere I want and enjoy my process and play pro regardless of where I am. But
Megan,
sorry, I hope that answered your question.
Before we throw
You
to
did.
Sherry here, I do want to say you went to Utica, correct?
Yes.
And you
All right. I love Utica. It's
captained
just
a
down the road
professional
from
Great
me.
spot.
Yeah, you captained a professional team. You didn't just play pro. Like you went there and you became a captain, and were very successful. So I'm qualifying that for the audience a little bit. Not that they didn't know that, but
Thank you.
I can tell that you're humble, and I wanted to make sure that we
Gassing
said
me
that.
up.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, I just want to talk about sort of your thoughts and what you're seeing around players having advisors and any sort of platforms that you guys use internally. Maybe it's NCSA or websites that you can recommend. What are your thoughts on this? Or kids can they do the recruiting on their own, or what's best for everyone here?
I think a lot of programs are different and they're trying to like their thoughts on advisors. I personally think that the girls can do it on their own. I think the way that I talked about sending an email, you can do that on your own. And we talked about earlier, it's a life skill. I think it's important to be able to do on your own. And even said like advisors and parents, I have parents emailing me on behalf of kids too. Like it's on the player. I want to hear from a player that is, wants to come to a high academic school. I hope they could write an email. And I think that's a good life skill. NCSA and all those platforms we do not use. We do use like Instat. Most people use Instat just to watch video, but it's not a recruiting platform. I think that advisors take away the component of the girls being their own advocate and fighting for themselves and having those conversations with coaches where the advisor reaches out on behalf. I mean, and could be saying this because I get a lot on the East Coast, which I don't think they need advisors. There's so many resources out here. But with Vegas being said, like maybe players in Vegas need an extra advocate where they have Sherry and they have great coaches, but maybe someone that is not being seen needs a little bit extra help. That would be my only other reason to have an advisor is if you need someone that has more networking elsewhere that you do not have or your coach does not have. But in my general opinion, I think that girls can be able to do it on their own.
Can you touch too on parent involvement? Like, do you want to see emails from parents or do you want to see emails from the girls advocating for themselves? Also, secondly to that, Lee talked about, A, B, C player. You're looking at three players. C player is excellent, probably your choice, but their parents' behavior, they're well known that the parent is a nut or they're like hard to deal with, but the kid is really good. Can you talk about parents' behavior, affecting kids' chances of recruiting? And then also, like, who do you want to hear from? Do you want to hear from parents? Do you want to hear from kids?
Definitely want to hear from the kids. So super important. And we're having these tough conversations about obviously like money and scholarships. Like I think the parents are involved in this. I think the parents are involved in the process, but in terms of hearing from that side, I think it's the player. We do involve parents in the visits. We do involve parents in the Zooms. We have the conversation about financials with them. And I think it's important to have them on board too, because who's the first person that our player is going to talk to after a game? It's mom and dad. So you want to have mom and dad on board. And I think that their impact is huge. Obviously you don't want to judge a player by their parents. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. But I think it's important to have the parents on board. We're not going to not recruit a kid because the parents are way too involved. Obviously, that'd be a conversation with the player. Hey, I need you to take more autonomy in your process. Hey, you're here in college now. You're doing your own laundry and you're cooking your own meals. Okay, you're going to do this now. Like mom and dad are going to step out. But it's a hard balance, right? Because they are part of a huge piece of this. And we want it to be a family atmosphere. We want them to feel connected to the program as well with their daughter in it. But yeah, I think it's hard when parents make it harder on their kid. And I think that, that happens way too often.
Well, and like, I'll say this too, we're using the word kid. Like my second grader's a kid. My fifth grader's a kid. If you're actively in the college recruitment field, that time period, even if you're a little younger, you're a young adult now. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think I'm not saying that to this, but I'm talking to the parents listening. Like, you got to look at it like that, right? Like, no, we're developing a young adult. What would a young adult do? All right. Because I've heard a crazy stat about parents going to job interviews now, and it's an immediate no. I mean, it's just an immediate no. Those of you listening can look them up because they're going to change. They're staggering that parents are going to job interviews with their kids. Like, I don't want to hire that person. All right. No. So, like, we're talking about being an advocate. You're a young adult. Be a young adult. And listen, how about we say this too? Like, everybody on board here. It's scary. Yeah, it's scary when you're 19, 20, whatever age you are. It's scary to email someone asking for something you want more than anything in the world, and you might get a no. But I'll tell you what, it's a lot scarier when you got two kids and you need a job 15 years later. So you better have that skill set built up now, right? So I also just want to normalize that anxiety, right? It's not easy.
Mhm.
Christy, you went through it with your daughter. It's
Yeah,
not an easy time,
it's
but the
not
life
easy.
lessons are important.
Very important. Right. And it's so tempting as a parent. You know, you don't want to see your kid fail, but please let them experience this. It's going to benefit them on so many levels. Also, I wanted to talk to you about there's so many new women's programs starting up. And we went through this where, you know, these coaches need players and they want, you know, as many players as they can get on this brand new program. And they'll sell it to you saying, you're going to be a part of history. You're going to be the, you know, one of the first women's hockey programs in the history of the school. Super tempting, but there's a lot to be said about starting up a new program.
Yeah. Especially if Boston
So
wants you. Yeah.
Sure.
exactly. So that's what a lot of young women are facing now too, is and these coaches are coming on strong because they want you to play for them. They're trying to build these successful teams. So it's tough now, you know?
Yeah.
So what can you say? What kind of advice can you give to the girls who are trying to figure out where to play and you got all these brand new programs popping up?
100%. Yeah. And I started two programs, so I understand how difficult it is just to run it, not alone be a player in it. I think for new programs, like it's definitely something to think about. Do you want to be a part of the process?
Right.
Because year one's not going to be perfect. Year two, year three, it's going to take 2 to 3 years for it to be dialed. And some schools do it better than others. Like I hope the new programs have figured out where it's going to be clean cut. The rink is perfect, locker room. We have a good roster size. We have a good league. But that's not always the case. So it's, as a student athlete, like in a player, I know I want to go be the start. I want to start something. I want to be the first. And not everyone wants to do that. A lot of people want legacy and they want something that's lasted and that's timeless. And where when I was recruiting at Stonehill, like we had girls that just want to be the first, and that was really cool. And that was something that they took pride in, that they wanted to build a legacy. They were the first class. And I think that's a special thing to have. And not a lot of players want it. And that's okay. And I hope that players don't feel pressure if the coaches that have all these open spots, which isn't very often, are offering you spots and you don't want to take it. It's your process. And if you don't feel like you want to be a start of something and be a part of it, that's okay. Not everyone's like that. So that was a really good question because it is interesting. There's at least like 2 to 3 programs coming up every year, which is awesome for our sport. But makes it difficult on the players.
You could also get beat up pretty badly that first year.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to have the medal for it. You know what I mean? You got to be tough.
Christy, are you secretly starting a Division I women's program without telling us? Is that what you're doing?
Keep us in the loop here.
Hey, last question for me, and then if anybody on the panel has any more questions, dive in. This actually, I've been writing notes the whole episode. This came up. Going back to kind of the meeting process, right? Maybe you could give a little bit of insight on this one. What questions do you love getting from incoming players, and what questions do you hate getting from incoming players?
I don't think I love all questions. I think all questions are good because if they're like, it could be a weird question for me, but the kid's probably super passionate about the question. Like, what kind of gloves do we get? Which I find like doesn't matter, but the kid's probably fired up about it, which I would have been fired up about it when I was in their age. But what favorite questions, like just even questions that they're just engaged. Hey, what's the day in the life? That's a big one that the girls ask, which I appreciate because you want to get kind of a sense of, can I handle this balance of being a student and an athlete? What are hobbies that girls do on the weekends? I like that they're thinking about not just hockey, not just school. How can I fit in this community and do something different? Meet new people, take advantage of where I am. How are the professors? How are my resources? I love explaining to girls that they have no idea, and a lot of players don't have any idea till they get to college, maybe not even then, how many people it takes to run an athletic department in any school.
Right.
Then they're all there for the student athlete's well-being and to make their student athlete experience the best that it is. And I think it's important for everyone that's coming through this process to know there's an athletic director, there's an assistant, there's an assistant, there's an assistant general manager. Like everything in every department. I think it's important for them to know that they're supported. And then I think what else is important is the sports psych mental health. I think that it's huge for them to be up with all of that. It's in our world, and it's definitely in hockey. And I think it's important that they're not afraid to ask that question anymore, which I find is cool. They're not afraid to ask about what our mental health resources are on campus or within our hockey program. So I think that is a cool question. But again, like I said, all questions are great. I like to rant on my visits and talk way too much. So it's good when they ask
perfect for podcasting. It's perfect. And I'll say this too, that, you bring up a good point. Like, look, recruiting does kind of go both ways, right? It's not just the school recruiting. It's like the players trying to be, I guess, convinced as well. I think there's a lot of power, and you tell me this, in saying, can I meet the assistant? Can I meet the manager? Can I meet these people? Because then you can see how the culture is. Now, look, obviously BU has a great culture. Like, there's no doubt, right? But like, I think that's a great question to ask sometimes, if there's time. Can I meet your team? Right? I want to feel that, right? And I think that goes both ways. Just like meeting a family. Can I meet your crazy
100%.
parents to see if they're sane? Okay. And we always say on the show that it's you're not crazy. The hockey world is crazy. Sherry, you look like you had something to add to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to have Megan talk about unofficial visits and official visits. It's like, what can players expect on an official visit? Are they meeting the team? Are they seeing the dorms? Are they going to admissions? What can they expect when they're preparing to go on an official visit? When do you get that invite? What age? And like, where do you have to be at your point in the recruiting process to go on an official visit? And if you're on an unofficial visit, when can you schedule that? How do parents reach out? Is it admissions? Is it coaches? How do you go on an unofficial visit?
So you can go on a visit to a school without coaches or players present anytime you want. You can go on campuses all over the country and just walk around on your own or do an admissions tour. Like, that's technically not an unofficial visit. There's an unofficial visit and an official visit. They all happen after June 15th, after your sophomore year. So which unofficial visit and official visit, the only difference is we're not paying for you on an unofficial visit. We're not buying a meal. We're not buying your hotel, your flight, or your transportation to get there. And official visit, we can buy all those things. We can pay for your meals. But if unofficial, you can meet the team. That you can come to a game. You can see campus. We can walk you around. We can talk to you. We're just not paying for anything in this whole process. That's the big distinction of it. To schedule those things, that would come through the coaching staff. If you wanted to do an admissions tour, that's great, and wanted to catch up with me, 100%. That would just be an email, and we take the visit off our plate. But sometimes those admission tours rock. Like, they know way more fun facts than I do, so sometimes they're better off. But admissions tours usually don't hit up athletics as much. That's why unofficial and official visits are better. I hope that answered your question.
What about home visits? Do you do any home visits?
Our head coach handles all the home visits. Yeah. Those, I have never done one. I feel like I would break under pressure, like someone's house of my manners and their table eating dinner. But they are a thing. They went away during COVID. They've come back. So I think it all depends on the player, and obviously location and all the timing and stuff. But those people are doing those.
Right. I did like the unofficial visits, I have to tell you. The official visit, Sophia had a ball, and of course, you always put your best foot forward for the players, The unofficial visits are fun because you're kind of getting a real feel for what it's like on the campus, what the kids are like. You really get a good perspective of what life would be like every day on that campus when you do it unofficially. So I would definitely encourage that.
I had an official visit, when I was being recruited in the school the first school to recruit me, like very, very first school. So I was going to that school, right? Just the first to show interest. Saved the official visit to my birthday, went on my birthday, and ended up getting really sick from a seafood allergy in an area that's a heavy seafood area. So found out the hard way I have a seafood allergy. So got home. That was it for me. I was like, I can't go to this school. Picked up the next school. I said, I'm coming next weekend, did an official visit, and ended up going to that school. But yeah, you really have to go see, that's something you would never know from playing hockey, research, admissions, school. You'd never know that it's like maybe that environment is not where you want to be.
Excellent point. You can learn a lot from those unofficial visits, and
Yeah.
no seafood for you.
It's actually a coach saved my life, honestly. Like I had anaphylactic shock and I would have died.
Oh
Like
my
if he didn't answer the phone, if he came back and took me to the hospital. So he ended up saving me. It's like I'll forever be thankful for that coach. But
That's
my
crazy.
gosh, what a story.
Jeez, we know what Sherry tells in her, secret facts competitions when it's like, here's something no one knows about me. All right.
Yeah.
Almost died on a recruiting visit.
We got
I got a crazy recruiting story. So my recruiting, like I didn't commit till May of my senior year. So very, very late.
Wow.
School was starting in end of August. So I went on a visit to Utica. And I get there, I'm with my dad, and we go to this unofficial visit. It's unbelievable. I fall in love with it. By the end of the visit, Clausen goes, "Hey, I'm going to leave you with one of the teammates for the night." I'm like, "What?" No one told me it was an overnight visit. I have nothing. I've never left my dad like this whole time. So now I'm with this random teammate, and she walks me to this dorm room, and we're hanging out with some girls on the team, not on the team, and one of the girls is having a beer. It's noon on a Thursday, and I'm like, going to the bath. I got to go to the bathroom, call my dad. I'm like, "Dad, you got to pick me up. They're having a beer at noon on a
Welcome
Thursday.
to college.
He's like, "Megan, just have the beer. It's okay." ended up not staying, freaked out. My dad picked me up and I committed the next day. But kind of crazy story. Like,
What
it
a
was
cool
so
dad.
funny. Yeah.
Sounds like a
Megan,
great
just
start.
have the beer, Megan. It's okay.
It sounds like the great start to like a National Lampoon film or something like that.
Yeah.
I hope he
Megan goes
took
to
you out for
college.
some Italian food after that, which
Yeah.
Utica
Oh,
is
yes.
famous for.
Yes, he did.
Got us some chicken riggies after that beer.
Oh, so good.
Do any of the other hockeyologists have any more questions before we end? No, it looks
Yeah, I
like
do have one
Go ahead.
question,
Go ahead, Christy.
Megan, and this is really important for kids to understand. I mean, it's so exciting when you think about, I get a chance to play college hockey, but the kids have to realize how much work is involved in being a student athlete. It's like having two jobs. You're on the road a lot. You got to figure out how to balance your academics with your playing. There's the physical aspect of it too. So I think kids have to put all of that in perspective before they come in. Like, am I ready to do this? Because it's a lot.
100%. I think that's where the research comes in. The good questions about resources. Say I am struggling in school already as it is, and I'm going to a high academic school. I want to know what my resources are. What is going to be available at my fingertips that I can use so I can succeed here? I'm going to a school that's way far away from home. Who can I lean on here? Who do I have in my corner? I think that, I just think it's so important to understand when you're going through the recruiting process, ask all these questions to understand that's going to set you up for success. That's what we want. We want student athletes that are coming into our school that we know are going to be set up for success and aren't going to drown under the balance. And obviously at the end of the day, parents are leaving us with their children, their young women, as you would say. And we are going to do our best to take care of them, but we also have to have some autonomy on their end to understand their resources and help them out. But there's a balance to it for sure. But I think if you know your resources and you balance your time well, which all freshmen will learn in one semester when they get to college, I think it's definitely doable depending on what school you go to.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
She is the pride of Las Vegas, Nevada, the standout
Yes,
from
she is.
Utica. She is a wonderful
outta
coach
here.
from Boston, and she is an all-star podcast guest. Megan, I want to thank you on behalf of the team for joining us today. This really was a great episode. And again, we always try to provide value. If you're listening to this and you have a young lady that's looking to go to college, you got value today, right? And in 10 years, I'll be calling you. I'm sorry, my daughter will be calling you. I'm just kidding. Assuming
Exactly.
she's even in the realm at that point. But Megan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great questions, a good conversation. I appreciate it.
All right, well,
That's
that's
a
going to
great
do it
conversation. Thank you.
for this edition of Our Girls Play Hockey. For Mike Benelli, Sherry Hudspeth, Christy Casciano Burns, Megan Myers, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on the next episode of Our Girls Play Hockey. Remember to skate on. Have a great time. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.